I am Virginia Norfleet. I'm a long-term resident of Haverstraw. My family's been here for over 100 years. We are sitting in the Haverstraw African American Park. I grew up in the mud hole, like I said, on West Street. Haverstraw was a great place to live. I mean, basically, it was working class people, and it was a melting pot. Early in life, it was primarily African American, Italian, and Jewish. I guess the Dutch were here because we had Dutch Town, and Irish. And later on in the 60s was the first group of, well, from what I recall, we got an influx of a group from Puerto Rico. And then later in the 80s, we got the group that came in from the Dominican Republic. But it's always been a melting pot. And people pretty much got along because you were working class. So Haverstraw was a fun place to grow up. It was the heartstrings made you attached to people. It wasn't so much DNA. For the African American community at large, and I know this is within the country, because of the migrations and things like that, you end up adopting everybody in the neighborhood. Everybody is your auntie or your uncle or whatever, and that still goes to today. It has nothing to do with DNA. It has all to do with the love and the heart that you bring into a community. So Haverstraw was the perfect place to grow up because everybody had a jurisdiction over you. They would train you and they would teach you the right ways, and you couldn't get out of line. And if you did, you had to deal with everybody in the neighborhood, whether it was your Italian grandmother or it could be your, whomever. But they had the right to intervene and put you back on the right path. So it was a lot of fun. It was always told to us that African Americans came to Haverstraw to work in the brickyards, that they migrated from the South and they came here. And that's on our history books, that's in the town history, that's everywhere. In 2005, I acquired a property on 39 Clinton Street, and during the demolition process, I discovered a brick, and a very special brick, a very unique brick. It had a cross etched in it or carved out of it. And then we found a business directory, an old page of a business directory, and in the business directory, it says African church, that this would have been the site of the African church. Made no sense to me, made no sense to my mom, my dad, because during our lifetimes, this house on 39 Clinton Street would have been a residential home. After much research and after my mom passed, I thought about the brick, and I started to do some research on the brick to only find out that the house that I had destroyed was actually the first site of the first African American church in Rockland County. So that's what we found out. So we did some history because it was conflicting with what we were taught. So if the African Americans migrated from the South to work in the brickyards, then how did they establish this church in 1846? So I knew there was something wrong, so we did some more history, and I called in a friend of mine, and she discovers the first census list that in 1790 that Haverstraw had 238 slaves. Now it was shocking. It was earth-shattering, actually, because here I had lived my life, my mother had lived her life, my grandmother was here. We never heard these things. And to be schooled here, and like I said, we're not transient, we were planted here. And this whole history was quiet, ignored and silenced. All people should be respected, and all history should be exposed and known, the good and the bad, because the bottom line is you can't change history. So it's better to have it out there and for people to know the stories. As I found out more about the history, I wanted to do something to honor the people who were invisible and who had been forgotten.